I jumped into the world of a language called cancer to try to find out everything I could to help my dad have the best experience at the last stage of his life. And so I would go on a whole bunch of blogs and sites, and one of them was a forum that people would post, their different experiences with different drugs and different things that they were going through within this cancer site. And of course, on these sites, a lot of them had, what I point out as a CPA ad. In this particular case, it's fixed bunions, no surgery. And as I was scrolling through this one day, I saw an ad from one of my marquee clients. And at the time, I was the president of one of the largest media companies in Canada. And this was a client of ours that had just decided to move their digital media in-house because they felt that they were paying too much and they wanted to pay as low a price as they could, and they were buying impressions and they didn't care about location. And I took a snap of this and I sent it to them, and the next day they called me and gave the business back to us because they were appalled that a cereal brand could live on a site like this at a time where I was reading the most devastating news about how people are dying and how there were trials and how there were all these, challenges with cancer, and I'm seeing an ad for a special care, all brand, or, whatever it was. So that, for me, was the first time that I experienced, just as a consumer, that I was aware of how horrible and awful the space of digital could be without human intervention. 2 weeks ago, February the 14th, which, by the way, happens to be my father's birthday. It's just a coincidence that it sort of turns out this way. But on February the 14th, 2018, in the US, there were one of the most devastating school shootings. And I went on to the Yahoo Rogers website to log into my email. And the first story after the shooting was a story by supposedly the Journal de Montréal. Notice that the de isn't there. So it's a native ad for this weather girl that claimed to have won $800,000. It was a native ad for a gambling site. It was the #1 news story on Rogers. And, again, at a time where you're just, you're holding on to all the things that are dear to you, and you're looking at your email, and this is the first story, it just kind of left a really horrible taste in my mouth about how bad advertising can actually be. Now, we know in the ad business that missed content happens all the time, and this is an example. It happens all the time, despite our best intentions. But this is, human error, and I'm sure when it was caught, it was pulled down immediately. I think some of these things aren't pulled down quickly enough because it's hard to catch. So, Google and Facebook, they're in the limelight here because the majority of the ad dollars are going to them. And they've had a series of issues over the last, I would say, 18 months plus, both in static form, in display ads, but also in video where it's much harder to actually capture. On Thursday, interestingly enough, I don't know how many of you read The Onion, but The Onion had a story in their feed that basically, and this is a quote, The Onion is saying, it doesn't make any money unless you click on the fucking link. And they were actually telling their readers, hey, this is free content. And unless you click on all the shit that we have above and below, we aren't able to give you this for free. And I think, again, good intentions, but I think they actually missed the opportunity to say that The Onion, if it's got great content, is probably worth paying for. And perhaps this isn't the best way to support shit like this. Okay? So, we've seen a lot of advertisers talk about banning sites, advertisers being upset at things that they're seeing in sites that aren't caught. And I think that there is, there was a poll in the Hill Times, a political paper in the US, talking about the majority of many people are worried, and they're questioning whether the tech giants actually need regulation during the Trump era. That's pretty amazing. So this idea of technology driving unintended consequences is really what the theme of today's conversation is about. And, I think lots of advertisers care. This is an anonymous quote from one CMO. Some don't. So in a world of capitalism, like, does it actually matter? And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about and debate today. You know, one of the things that they say, and we say this in advertising, when something is free, you become the product. And when you become the product, your data is up for grabs, the advertising that you get is up for grabs. And I think that that is something, as a marketer, as a mother, as a person, as a human, I'm starting to question and wonder, where is my line? What's the line that I'm willing to tolerate? What am I willing to give up to get? And so, you know, technology for good, technology for not so good. Today, that is what our topic is about. So, and I think we've got some incredible speakers. The first one is a friend of mine. His name is Andrew Simons. He's the Chief Creative Officer at Edelman. He is an incredible speaker. He's got a reputation in advertising of being charming and thoughtful and wonderful, and he's going to be talking about some work that Edelman has done on trust. And I'm going to introduce Andrew to come up to the stage. You can talk.